Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli, certified nutrition coach, consultant, counselor, call me whatever you would like. On this episode, I am addressing a term called diet breaks. You may be familiar with it, you may not be. There's a lot of different ideas around a diet break. There's reverse dieting. There's other forms of taking a minute away from your fat loss phase and changing some things up. There's reasons for it physiologically, but also, more importantly, in my opinion, psychologically, to take a diet break. What a diet break, first of all, is when you are in a calorie deficit for an extended period of time, losing fat. You may come to a point to where you're either burnt out, seeing stalls, or just not feeling right, and it's time to stop tracking food, going off of a meal plan, eating very low calorie, and you kind of bump that up to what we call a calorie maintenance. Eat at that level for a few weeks. That's my opinion. That's what I would call a diet break. And a few things I would do within a diet break is mostly going to be for psychological reasons, not necessarily for my physical being. Now, there is some science that says that when you up your calories, you boost your metabolism back a little bit because your body got used to the low cal and it doesn't want to burn fat anymore within your deficit range. So you bump it up a little bit and you eat a few weeks at maintenance. Now, that may be still having to track. Maybe you're still using a scale. Maybe you got a meal plan put together for maintenance, and that's fine. If that's your diet break, that's the way you want to do it, that's great. But to me, that doesn't alleviate the psychological factor of it all. Now, where I'm going with that is that it can become very mundane, very tedious, very repetitive to be tracking food, eating off of a meal plan, low calorie, like you can get burnt out from that. Just, not feeling right, at low energy. Doesn't feel good. You might become irritable. You might become, just disgusted in certain things. You might start to resent the whole process, and you don't want to resent the process because that's so beneficial. And you've probably come a long way at this point. If you're at a point of a diet break, you've probably made some pretty good progress, because when you take a diet break is when you probably feel good about where you are to where you can go off of it for a little bit. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to go ahead and go on a diet break too, and go ahead and eat freely, because that's scary for some people because they have the safety net of either a meal plan, they're tracking, whatever else that is. That scares people. But it's one of the best things you can do, because what you're going to find out in a diet break is kind of what you've learned based on who you previously were and what you were eating to cause you to want to go into a calorie deficit and lose fat anyways. So ideally, the best thing you can do is start just eating freely and eating what they call intuitively. And don't even bother with a scale. Don't even bother tracking. None of that. Just see where you're at and how you maneuver through your way of eating since you've learned. See what you've learned. What a diet break isn't is just going crazy and eating pizza, burgers, and all that stuff. Now, it is good to go ahead and maybe have a few meals like that. Maybe you've really deprived yourself or restricted yourself away from food for several weeks, and you want something like that. I think that's all good to do in a diet break phase. Not every day, not every meal, but here and there a couple times within a couple of weeks. I think that's not a bad strategy. It kind of gets you satisfied. And you know what? When you're done with this diet break, you've had the food you like, you've eaten a little bit more, you've alleviated your brain from having to think about staying in that calorie deficit. And now maybe after those couple of weeks, you're ready to go back in. You're refreshed. You feel good about it. And you might still look how you look. And that's very encouraging to go ahead and see yourself in the mirror after a diet break and be like, you know what? Wow, I haven't tracked anything. I didn't use a meal plan, and I still look very good and I feel great. And that's how it should happen, because why you want to do that diet break is to keep yourself consistent and going. You don't want to go 100% all the way, because that leads to burnout. It's better off to go 80, 90% for a year than it is 100% for 3 months. And that's kind of where these diet breaks come in. And you can decide where you want to go after the diet break. Depends on your body and how you feel and what your next goal is. If you're very lean and you've leaned out enough and you feel good about that, you might want to jump right from maintenance into a calorie surplus, which is 200 to 500 calories over your maintenance, and start that with progressive overlifting and build some more muscle. And then, and as you do these different phases, the deficit to the maintenance to the diet break to the surplus, each one has its own benefit mentally and physically for you. So you don't want to neglect these diet breaks because they're fun. First of all, they're alleviated. They take the stress off of you. And there's just so many benefits to them psychologically that it's almost a necessity to do this. And you need to do it intentionally with confidence. A diet break is not giving up and saying, this sucks, I don't want to do it, and I'm going to stop. And I'll try this again in a little bit. But you got to have it with intention. You want to have intention when you do that. I pulled an article here from a website called Working Against Gravity. This is an article that was published on July 26, 2022 by Allie Macy. And she kind of outlines 5 signs to where you need a diet break. So these are some reasons, like if you're in a calorie deficit, you're progressing, you're feeling good, everything's going fine, but you kind of feel the burnout, you kind of feel like things are stalling a little bit. That's when you're going to want to start thinking about this. So the number one bullet point she has here is that your weight loss is stalled. So there you go. That's the first one. That's more of a physical one. You're plateaued. You've gone a few weeks and you're not seeing the scale move. You're not seeing changes in the mirror. You're feeling frustrated. Now that's the time when you're supposed to say, you know what? I'm going to put the scale away. I'm going to put the MyFitnessPal away, and I'm going to go ahead and just go to the grocery store and buy what I want and see how I do and go from there. And then, you know what? What's the worst that happens? You already know where your calorie deficit is. If you gain some weight, you gain some fat in that stage and you didn't do it right, so be it. You lose it and you tried. And then you can try again and change it up and see what maybe you did. Maybe you overate too much. Maybe you ate out too many times during the break. You can just go from there and figure it out. Number 2 is that your performance has drastically decreased. So that's in the gym. Maybe you still want to be lifting and running and doing whatever it is you like to do in the gym and keeping that going. But if you feel like you're moving backwards after a while because your energy is so low that you're drastically decreasing your performance, that's another reason to go ahead and almost what they call refeed even is another term. It's not the same, but you can also just refeed yourself and re-energize yourself, and that can improve your performance significantly. Her number 3 here is hunger being through the roof. Hunger is no fun. You can be irritable. You can be miserable. And that's not going to be helpful for your mental health, for your relationships, or anything of the sort. You know, this is a good time, too, if you've been really strict on yourself. You know, go out to eat with your family. Go out to eat with your friends. You know, order that pizza that you wanted to try. You know, not every day, but here and there. You know, do it. Who cares? And see what happens. See how your body responds. You never know. You might be surprised that you could go that 2 weeks on that diet break, eat sort of however you really want, and, you know, you just kind of maintained it. And that's a win. We always look at progress on the scale, in the mirror and all that, and that is progress. But you know what is progress? Is doing whatever the hell you want, especially around food and other activities, and not making any negative progress, not digressing at all. That's also really good to know. That's like a very exciting. It's something that gets overshadowed because we're all focused on go, progress. That's progress right there. That's the most important progress. That's confidence building. That's lifelong shit that you will take with you throughout this whole thing. So hunger through the roof was her number 3 here. Her number 4 is that your diet is increasing your stress. That kind of goes along with it. If you're, like I said, you're not happy, you're taking things out on your spouse or your kids or your friends, and things are just negative and blasé for you, and you're just, that's time. It's time, and you don't want to do it. You start resenting the diet. It's not fun. That is when you want to go on a diet break for sure. And number 5, she has that your sleep is suffering. And I've said it multiple times. One of the main drivers of anything is good sleep. Because without good sleep, you're going to be stressed. You're probably not working out. You're not going to want to diet very hard because you're going to be too lethargic to want to do a damn thing. So if you're sleep suffering because you're tossing and turning at night from hunger, that's definitely something to think about and address. And when to go back on. Now, when you've done it, you can stay in a diet break as long as you want, as long as you're happy with your life, how you're doing it, and how you look. If you want, you set another goal. Maybe you go into a calorie surplus. and you start building muscle. That's a great way to go if you were already leaned out enough from your deficit and you feel like, you know what, I can put on a little more here and eat even more food, but you want to calculate it. If you're going to go from a diet break to a surplus, the difference is not just, I'm just going to eat more. No, that you might run into some issues there, because if you haven't done it before, especially, you might overeat, you might put on too much fat and start to become unhappy and confused. So I would say if you're in a diet break right around maintenance, I would definitely go back to tracking or put a meal plan together that's 200 to 500 calories over your maintenance level and stick to that for about 12 weeks. And even then you can implement, a diet break from there, because believe it or not, after a surplus, eating a lot of calories over, I can't believe I'm even saying this because I just did it. It kind of gets old to always having to keep eating something. I went from about 33 to 3,500 calories all the way down to 2,200. And now I wish I had those calories back because I'm hungry. But at the same time, after a while, it was like, man, this is a lot of food. I got to go make something else again, because, you're not going to eat Pop-Tarts and popcorn and chips and cookies all in your surplus. You got to eat right. So that's still a diet in a way, but you have a different goal for it. It's complete opposite. It's eating more calories to gain weight, to gain muscle. It's a lot of fun, believe it or not. So it's a lot of fun to get to that point. So that's kind of where you want to go. And if you weren't leaned out enough, that's when you want to drop back into your calorie deficit and see how the fat burning begins and see how your energy is and see if you start making progress right out of the gate after the break. So I would say, how strict do you need to be in a diet break overall? I wouldn't be too strict, but I also wouldn't let yourself just go and fall back into terrible habits. It's definitely a good test. Like I said before, it's kind of the goal is to kind of be able to eat that way when you're not on a diet. You're never on a diet. You're just intuitively eating. I do not like that term for some weird reason. I don't know why, but that's really the goal. So that's diet breaks. It's a short episode here. It's something you have to get used to. You have to build, before you even just go and look at how to do it, you have to just have the right mindset to go into it. And just know that you're not going to fall back into horrible habits that are going to deplete your progress and maybe even send you spiraling and never back into the deficit again. So you have to really be mentally clear to go ahead and do something like this. And you have to be excited for it because, A, you're going to eat more food, you're going to alleviate some restrictions, and you're going to learn if you have built enough confidence and enough knowledge to sustain where you're at. Basically, you want to maintain everything you had done in that deficit, and then be able to go back and progress further inside of the calorie deficit. So if you have questions on this, it's a kind of a loaded subject in a way. Everyone's going to handle it differently, like anything else. Hit me up. I'm on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. The handle's at MFS Wellness. You can drop me an email, mike@mfswellness.com. Until we come back for another episode, we will see you then. Thank you.